This is called Mother, a tribute to the miracle that is Dale Susan Liebman. Bear with me to get through this. A boy's best friend is his mother, so said Norman Bates. I couldn't agree more. How do you possibly put into words the effect a person of significant meaning, conviction, strength, artistry, and passion has had and will always have on your life? Dale Susan Liebman, Kivowitz was her maiden name, was myriad of roles to legions of people, wife to her husband Bruce, sister to her brother Jay, daughter to Claire and Maxwell Kivowitz, friend to many and perhaps the most celebrated, cherished, and difficult of all roles, mother to both my brother Marshall and to me. In fairness, Mom, as we call her, should not be given a speech today, but rather a medal, for her whole life was waging and winning wars to better others. Trust me, you didn't want to be on the receiving end of a phone call in which you represented the wronged customer. The opposition would leave with a buzzing head, jaw aghast, all the while trying to figure out how a tenacious brain from Brooklyn has convinced you to ship her free product on your dime to keep her happy as a future customer. Indeed, the legends are true. They had to pay her once to leave a pathmark. She's gotten more refunds and duplicate merchandise due to mix-ups and wrongs righted than you can possibly imagine. My mother is the Jedi Master to consumer protections and justice, period. But where do I start? I could tell you of her childhood kinship with one Bruce Philip Liebman, and how what began as a friendship as youths would organically transform into a marriage going an unheard of 40 plus years. Both, who were born in Brooklyn, would grow up blocks from one another. When Mom moved to Forest Hills, the Liebman and Kivowitz mothers Audrey and Claire would stay in touch. The next move to Rockaway would rekindle the sibling Dale and Bruce's friendship, and they would explore together, catching and playing with toads. I could tell you of the dutiful daughter who would do everything she could to appease a then single mother, forced to raise two children, my grandmother Claire, losing her dear husband Maxwell at a very young age. Dale, a proud member of the Brownie Troop, would bring home the grades, do the hard work around the house, and all she could to earn her mother's love and respect. Dale, who had the tremendous gift to communicate both verbally and written, often encountered others who could not. I could tell you of the accomplished and highly educated young woman out of Youngstown, Ohio, who, armed with a business mind and superhuman heart, climbed up the ranks of what was then AT&T. I could tell you of a woman who was never resistant to hard work, and who truly showed all that a driven woman could aspire to and then actually become. It was never words, it was actions with my mother. I could tell you of a woman who took pride in everything, displaying a high level of proficiency and excellence that she demanded of herself before anyone else, and who would write the check to get it done if she could not indeed do it herself. Don't hop lop, she would say. Tomorrow was never an option. It was simply about today and getting goals accomplished. I could tell you this and more, but I am going to tell you through the eyes of her son and the woman I had the privilege to know and love. I will tell you about my mother, the mama. My mother truly was a superhero, and I knew she was special, not just because she was mine, but by her actions. Once as a young boy, a woman had started with her in some parking lot in New York. But my mother was a master of self-control, and because my brother and I were present, thought ahead and minded what she said, and exercised restraint, discipline, and love. I didn't at the time know what mothering was exactly, but I was pretty sure I had just witnessed it at its highest level. My mother couldn't take care of her kids enough. Camp, new clothes for school, shoes yet again because our feet grew once more, no problem. She would and did find a way. In the restaurants, we were never ordered for or given kids meals. We ate like adults, always. The Liebmans always left stuffed, and back when we lived in Oceanside, Long Island, it was a race to the one toilet when we got home. She often won. My mother was the true backbone of our family. I was always proud of the fact that no matter how many arguments or flare-ups or down times, our core family remained together as a unit, and this was largely because my mother would call a family forum and we discussed the issue at hand. She was a Don Corleone in her rational approach, in her listening and then deducing what to do, as opposed to a fiery disposition that could be present in others. My mother was sharp, always bullet on in her pursuit of homeostasis or state of being. For her, the needs of the many always outweighed the needs of the one. We joked so many times that she didn't have money for a new bra, but yet my brother and I always had money in our pockets, food in our bellies, and smiles in our hearts. Together with my father, my mother exemplified the very definition of family. How fortunate are my brother and I to grow up in a nuclear family so full of love. And my father, well, he moved mountains for us. But that is another speech that I do not want to give for a very, very, very long time. Can you imagine a person who always told the truth, allowed and encouraged you to express your feelings, and actually cared what you, the child, had to say? My mother encouraged passion, whatever that passion, even if it might seem foreign to her. My mother struggled with weight her whole life, yet supported to her fullest her son's burgeoning bodybuilding passion. She paid for my chicken breasts, even clearing out the chicken aisle on one occasion when they were on sale for $1.99. My mom paid for my gym memberships, contest entry fees, and even the contest videotapes. And take a guess whose voice was the loudest on those tapes. Mom was the ultimate cheerleader. There was nothing she wouldn't do for her children. Nothing. One time I ran into a door chasing some kid at top speed, and it was she who left work to drive me to the emergency room to have plastic surgery by my eye. And I even got an action figure for it. And as an adult many years later, Mom would send me Superman action figures because she knew I loved Superman, for he carried many of her same qualities: truth, justice, and the American way. I was proud when one year I secured her very own Arnold Classic press credential and can show her a true glimpse into the bodybuilding world that I so fell in love with. That special weekend, Mom had a reunion with some of her old college friends. One time my mother stopped the then Mr. Olympia and one of my heroes, Dorian Yates, so her son could get a picture with him. All the while the crowd was like, who is this lady? But that was my mom, a take charge, I'm not going to wait for you if I can do it myself, linear, no-nonsense woman. One time she was at her friend's house and after waiting for hours was really hungry. When her friend was taking her time and then drinking, my mother took the reins into her own hands and finally ate. If you were at a stoplight and it was green and you weren't going, then she was going because you weren't holding her back, ever. Except when she told stories. While often there was an ending, the beginning and middle lagged on. When you were ready for the climax of the story, she was just warming up. Detail after detail as Mom would paint the experience, and I love her for it. Mom could take a joke, like the time we were in a store and she had bent over to pick up something and I let out a loud fart noise out of my mouth. The customers assumed it was her and she simply smiled. Or after she had a painful knee surgery and I would say she was recovering from the battle at Wounded Knee. Or when I picked up Chinese food on one occasion that she once again paid for, and the exact amount was $25.02, and it became a running joke to proclaim the price for whatever future item we were having while saying $25.02 in a horrendous Chinese accent. My mother was non-judgmental. She always had gay friends, friends of different ethnicities, and taught us the value and importance of tolerance and acceptance of others. Although at first she didn't understand my obsession and passion for Tupac, she never judged, and she eventually understood his message of just giving someone a chance and they could accomplish anything. And then she was on board. My mother was always tired on the inside, living a life in which she couldn't run fast enough to keep ends together and live up to what were her very high expectations of herself. But on the outside, Mom functioned like a supercharged engine and always got it done. Lazy? No way. Mom was hyper-driven, intelligent, and enlightened. As a boy, I remember fruit roll-ups and hot chicken soup and watching television together. She never drained from the responsibility of children, but rather programmed and eagerly prepared for it. Selfless is an extremely important word to describe her. All others came before her. How rare a quality that is. As I grew older, we grew closer. I will always be her son, but we were great friends too. There was the time it was 2 a.m. and I had just discovered women and had to drive home this lady. I had a smile on my face that night and was in my underwear driving her home. The next day my mom asked what I was doing driving around so late the night before. She knew. But she didn't say anything or embarrass me, though I am pretty sure I was given the condom speech soon thereafter. As her physical abilities diminished, her brain remained sharp, and Mom would always say how she would live vicariously through me and my adventures. She would talk to me like Ichdoc Stern, who would address Oskar Schindler when I would be disappointed or impatient in whatever achievement I had accomplished. I would often say I didn't do enough, and it was Mom who would say, you did so much. But it was Mom herself who may have thought she couldn't do enough for her children. She did almost too much. If you can imagine watching her son in a competition, again, take a guess who cheered the loudest and drowned out my posing music. If you can imagine having every item in the catalog when I was in the Boy Scouts, when others had but a few items. Imagine during the holidays when she made me schlep a garbage bag of presents to school for my teachers. Imagine a truly giving person. Born in Brooklyn, New York, April 25th, 1946, Dale Susan Liebman, despite her final residence in Aiken, South Carolina, always was and always will be a proud New Yorker. Happiest was she in Oceanside, Long Island, the first home I can remember as a child. How special a day it was years later, when her, my father, and I went back to visit and were given a tour. Proudest was she of the Sephardic Temple in Cedarhurst, Long Island, where for a time Mom worked with Grandma as the Liebman family dined on bagels, lox, and kreplach. Tradition, oy vey. Since she surpassed her father's age when she passed, Mom always felt as if she was living on borrowed time, and she did her best to use her time wisely. Always attentive, no one put on a Thanksgiving more grand and spectacular than my sweating mom, who wouldn't even have a bite until the guests were happy and satisfied. I was often upstairs already having my first duty when she had her first taste of stuffed cabbage. True story. I've heard bits and pieces over the years of factions within an extended family who were perhaps not the kindest to my mother at times. I am proud that Mother held her head up high and went about life. She would always seek and find the beauty in life, and through many means, including her beautiful collection of bunnykins. My mother set the bar very high for mothers the world over. Humanity has truly lost one of its giants. One of our last conversations, my beloved mother told me she was ready to move on. I was infinitely proud of both my brother Marshall and me, and that I am to come here and give a speech. My one regret is now that at 41, I was not able to give her grandchildren while she was alive. I hope one day to do this and to speak of Mom in the way Mom spoke of her dear Uncle Hal and her father Maxwell, both of whom I never had the pleasure to meet. My mother truly was the living embodiment of the famed Shel Silverstein story, The Giving Tree, a story about a tree that loved a boy and would do everything in her power to see him happy. In the end, the tree was but a stump, but I'm here to tell you that my mother was never a stump, but remains a shimmering light of magnificence. That was simply the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, not just for mothers, but for human beings. Sometimes in life we don't get what we feel we deserve. I'm here to tell you, I did get what I didn't deserve. I'm just thankful I won the lottery when it comes to mothers, and anyone that had the pleasure of knowing Dale will tell you that. Every year as her birthday approaches, 2 other holidays are grouped together, Mother's Day and my parents' anniversary, and every year I send a card, which was all she ever really asked of me. But for one, not all 3. I'm proud to say I finally have it right. And here are 3 cards to celebrate, Mom, your birthday, Mother's Day, and your wedding anniversary. A son couldn't be more proud of his mother. I'm not saying it because it sounds good. I'm telling you because it's the truth. My mother was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world of mothers, a role that if it didn't exist before, she herself would have invented. What are the lessons here? And with Mom, there was always lessons. Never pay retail and always use a thing. Common. Her favorite food in the world was mocha cake. We used to talk of her being stranded on Mocha Island, and Mom would have to eat her way to civilization. May heaven have enough mocha, and if they don't, please have your guy call my guy, and I will have it shipped. I love you, Mom, and always will. Until the end of time, you are my hero and shining light. I love you. Thank you, everybody.